back in and did some more scans, his body had actually grown another bypass itself in the back of his neck, so where it wasn't needed. So that brings up the question: do miracles happen today? No. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. 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 Let me just read you real quick a definition. A miracle is an event that seems inexplicable by natural or scientific laws. Okay. And accordingly gets attributed to some supernatural or pre-eternal natural cause. Various religions often attribute a phenomenon characterized as miraculous to the actions of a supernatural being, especially a deity, a magician, a miracle worker, a saint, or religious leader. Okay? So again, as Glenn was saying, something that's not explained by nature or scientific laws. Okay? Like being cured of leprosy. Mm-hmm.
And it was really bad, and they had to do some surgery. He went in 2 weeks later to his doctor. His doctor looked at him, and he says, "I don't see a hernia." And then he had another expert doctor come in and look, and he said, "There's no hernia there."
Right. And again, that can be attributed to misreading it, the x-ray or whatever. But again, it's something that you can't explain it by natural reasons, like, the ones that we were just talking about, Kathy and I. Your body kind of healing itself. Okay, that can be explained, your body doing things. Now, it has been said that miracles were only by Jesus and by the apostles, that they cannot occur today. What do you think about that? Well, and that's one thing that they talk about, yes.
So I think a lot of things that can only be explained by God, but that are natural occurrences that happen all the time, like childbirth, or the sunset, or the way that, animals, sea creatures deep in the ocean are formed, and how they, live amongst each other. Like, there's all kinds of things that we can look at and think of as miracles, because there's no other way that they can happen other than God's intervention.
Well, and humans, I think, have a tendency to use that word, miracle. They see a bad car wreck and the car is just all mangled together, to pieces, and the guy is pulled out without a scratch on him. Oh, that was a miracle that he survived that. Or there was an earthquake, and the guy, was underneath the bottom of a whole building collapsing on him, and 3 or 4 or 5 days later they pulled him out. Oh, it was a miracle that he survived that. We have a tendency to apply that word miracle to things that just happen. That, and let me use the term that God didn't have a hand in, maybe, for that person to survive. John?
We got Moses, Elijah, Elisha. They all did miracles.
Well, that was my next point. Let's go back a couple thousand years to the Old Testament. Okay, Moses takes his staff, throws it down on the ground, it turns into a snake. Was that a miracle? Okay, now what about the wise man who took their staffs and threw it down beside his, and it turned into a snake as well?
Magic.
Magic. Okay, so why is it Moses' miracle and his is magic?
His staff ate theirs.
Yeah, Moses' staff, you can hear me. Moses' staff ate theirs, to prove a point that, God was with Moses and took care of their faults, whatever. But it was kind of like a trick or whatever. And that's not something that anybody could do today, is take a stick and throw it down and it turn into a snake. Doesn't matter how good of a magician you are, But, so again, let's take Moses, parting of the Red Sea. Was that a miracle on Moses' part? Daniel in the lion's den gets thrown into this den of lions, and the lions don't eat him. Their mouths are sealed. Is that a miracle? Now, I think in the Old Testament, all these things that we see and we read is God performing these acts. God parted the Red Sea through Moses. He turned his staff into a snake. He closed the mouths of the lions. So it wasn't a miracle as it was God working through these men.
Well, which came first, the Old Testament or the New Testament?
I'm going to say old. Is that your
Very
question?
good, yeah. That's
Okay.
And then, so the New Testament came later. All those things in the Old Testament for the same reason I think they were done in the New Testament. And they were done by Jesus, which is God, same thing.
Right.
And through God. But he said, I think he says, that the miracles were going to pass away. I'm not sure on that. I know he talks about prophecies and
Yes.
tongues, but some reason I'm thinking miracles way too. But what were miracles for? Old Testament, New Testament. I think they were both the same. To show God's power and will. So they were going to pass away once his word came into being.
Correct.
Fulfilled. 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and 14, what goes along through there. That's why I think miracles have passed away.
So, why did Jesus perform miracles?
To confirm who he was.
To confirm who he was. Again, he was doing things that are not natural, that could not occur in your normal life. Like you said, somebody, being healed of leprosy,
And
a
even-
blind man to see, a lame man to walk, dead to rise.
And just think, when he sent his disciples out to go do something, I think this is when it happened. They came back to him and said, how come we couldn't do these things?
That's it. And what was the answer?
I forget.
Faith.
Okay.
Or those people that almost die, they're on the deathbed, and then all of a sudden, they just are like healed or something.
I've brought this story before when I was a teenager. One of the large congregations in town, there was a lady who was on her deathbed. And the congregation came together that night at the building and prayed all night long for her. She made it through. They gathered the family, said she's going to die tonight. But she pulled through and walked out of the hospital. And some would say, oh, well, that was a miracle. Well, again, that could be just your natural body overcoming whatever it was. And I don't remember what was her problem, But again, the consensus, and when we read the scriptures, states that the miracles were strictly for Jesus and the apostles during that time frame, again, to prove who Jesus was. Because, again, what did Jews think? Did the Jews think that Jesus was the Messiah? No, why not?
Not what they wanted. Not what they wanted.
What did they want?
King.
A king, a ruler, somebody to take an earthly throne and kick the Romans out and give them back Jerusalem. Jesus didn't do that. You're not the Messiah. Okay, so they did everything they could to disprove it, which they never could do. They kept trying to catch him in lies. They never could do that. But instead, Jesus proved time and time and time again, as we're going to start to study, with miracles. Because a normal person could not do this. But yet he did, but yet they still did not believe in him. Okay?
We are told that if we have faith, even the size of a mustard seed, we could speak to a mountain and say, live over here, and it would.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a miracle. We can, we have to have that kind of faith. Prayers work.
Yes.
God answers prayers, and sometimes it's no, sometimes it's wait, but other times it's, yes, I will heal this person, I will do that. So, yeah, I think there's miracles today. I mean, it may be our body's healing, and God's in control of it. That's the way I look at it.
Right.
If it tells us, if we have the faith that we should, and it's possible to have, otherwise he wouldn't say we could, to be able to do things because of our faith.
Right. Yeah, faith is a strong thing, and I think that's a totally different subject, that we don't tap into it because we don't have that faith to believe that we can do the things that we can do through it. But again, with the miracles, I think they were confined to this time period of Jesus's and the apostles because of, again, proving the power of God, proving, that he was who he said he was, and able to do these things that nobody else could do.
Where does the fact that we all have a time that we're supposed to die, and God's the only one that knows that, of course, so that's not really considered a miracle, because God's going to take us if it's our time.
Right.
And if it's not our time before that, it's because it's just not our time.
Right. Right. So, why did Jesus perform the miracles that he performed?
That proves who he was.
To prove who he was, but was there a method or timeline to what he performed?
Yes.
Okay.
Because if you look at the miracles, what was his first miracle?
Water and wine.
Water and wine. Very simple as far as miracles go. What was his last miracle?
Raising from the dead.
And, much more difficult and observable or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at them, they each one get more, whatever you call, difficult.
Yes.
Beyond the natural realm
Mm-hmm.
of things until he built it to the last one and to show him his power to keep. Because he knew when he got to that end, that was the end. That was, the time was close.
Right.
And he always said, what did he always say after he did a miracle, whatever? It's not my time.
Not my time.
Until he gets down, I think, to the Garden of Gethsemane, I'm not sure. But he says, this time.
Right. Now, the first one, water to wine at the wedding. Public or private? Say it. Well, it was public,
But it's private.
but it was private in that it was just a small group of people at a wedding. Okay? Right, rising from the dead, public or private? Very public. Everybody knew about it. The whole city knew about it. Okay? The water to wine. Did he take, was it accredited to him? Did they know he had done this?
His mother did.
His mother did.
The servants did.
The servants
he
did.
Whatever he asked.
What did you say, John?
The servants knew.
Yeah, the servants did because they were out of wine and all of a sudden they had some. Okay? But it wasn't a big thing that this is just what Jesus did. It was kind of like he just did it behind the scenes and it was there. Okay? What did he do or say with his first few miracles? What did he tell the person?
your sin and don't say anything.
Right, don't say anything. Yeah, there was some, like with the leper, you have to go and get, proven through the priest or whatever, that you were cleansed, okay? But most of the time, he told them, be quiet, don't say anything, don't tell anybody, which to me is kind of falling on deaf ears, because what are you going to do if you just got your sight back? You're going to tell people. People are going to notice. Okay? So why was it that Jesus didn't want it known in the beginning that he had performed these miracles?
It wasn't his time.
It wasn't his time? What else? What?
He didn't want to interfere in what his purpose was.
Correct.
And it already did enough, he couldn't go and travel.
Right. Okay. What happens later on when he's doing these miracles?
Something to throw in here too is that, Jesus asked his apostles, who do you say I am? Some say it's Moses, some say it's Elijah, some say it's the Christ. You almost get the impression that Jesus is questioning. I think building too much into this, building up his miracles. I really think that he looked for the first part, basically like the others, like Elijah, the other ones we talked about. They had the power to be able to do miracles. He kept it very low key through most of his ministry of what he was doing, what his purpose was, and what his goal was. Until the end.
When did they finally get the true answer of who he was and understand correctly of who he was?
After he died and was raised from the dead.
That's it. They didn't understand it all through his ministry. Even though they were there and witnessed all these miracles, it still didn't click until he rose as to who exactly he was. Okay?
Peter knew it.
Well, Peter did. Right. Okay? But again, he was working into it. Okay, he's new, if I can say new on the scene. They were again looking for Messiah, but he had to come in slowly instead of a big, ta-da. He worked into it slowly, and again, doing miracles, but telling the people, don't tell anybody, trying to keep it low key. Okay, and working in. But again, I think that they had a reason, they had a purpose, they ramped up, like you said, to the final miracle that he performed. Now, did he perform the miracles just by chance? Or do you think he performed the miracles on a set schedule? Were they pre-planned or predestined as to what he was going to do when?
Everything he did had purpose.
Yes. I think it was all pre-planned, predestined, whatever word you want to use. I don't think it was he was walking down the street, there was a lame guy, and he decided to heal him that day. Normally, what was a reason that he performed the miracles that he did? Was it just because he walked up on somebody who was lame and he healed him? Or was there another reasoning for it? Just what? Okay.
He was moved by compassion. That's being moved by compassion. That is not a pre-planned, follow the robotic plan, decision. That is I'm looking at what's going on, and I need to step in.
Okay. Since you opened that box, what was probably the most emotional miracle that he performed?
Well, that's what he bleeding.
What'd you say?
The lady that was bleeding.
Lady that was bleeding?
She came up and just touched his cloak, and immediately response, you're being surrounded by all those people, but you felt your power leaving.
Right.
It was,
I'd say the raising of Lazarus.
Lazarus. I think it was Lazarus. Okay.
That one was planned.
I know. I think but all of them were. Okay. But to me, that was his emotional one, because did Jesus know that he was going to raise him from the dead? Okay. Was Lazarus a close friend? Yes. But what did Jesus do? We saw the statement up here on the screen, the shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. Okay? That's the only time we see or hear of Jesus weeping. And one of his best friends died knowing that he's going to heal him, but yet because of his compassion, because of his love for the family, because of his love for Lazarus, he weeps. Even though he knows he's going to raise him from the dead in a couple of days. How long had he been dead? To what point? He's stoned. Okay. And what was his reasoning? He was just sleeping. You know? I don't think that held much water because he'd been sleeping for 4 days to the point that he's stinking. Okay? And he knew he was going to raise him from the dead, but yet he wept. And to me, that is his most emotional miracle. Don?
Does Jesus know what's going to happen? Or is it just only God does?
They're the same.
I mean, did God let Jesus know what's going to happen before it does, on things?
No. I think they're the same, and they know the same except for one thing that Jesus does not know. And what is that?
When he's coming back.
When he's coming back. That only God knows. The day that he will return, the day that it's the judgment. Okay? But otherwise, I think they know because they're one and the same. We don't know for sure, but I would think they would. Yeah?
I think it was emotional because Lazarus was his friend, and the fact that Lazarus had to go through that,
Right.
even though he knew he was going to raise him,
And his family.
and his family, they had to mourn, they had to be hurt if, before it happened.
Right, because they know he's dead. Okay, they can smell him. Okay. But I think that his miracles were planned out, predestined as to what was going to happen. An example of that was the blind guy that Jesus healed. We've talked about this in one of our lessons. Okay? Jesus said that he was born blind so he could heal him that day. There was a purpose for it. To me, that was predestined that he had to be born blind so that Jesus could heal him to prove a point to the Pharisees. Because, remember, they questioned it, but it had to happen.
There is another reason why Jesus wept. Because the people of their faith, that they didn't believe. That's why he wept.
Okay, that too.
Well, like Melinda said, the lady that just touched him with his garment, I don't think that was planned. He said, who touched me? He didn't say, oh, yeah, she just touched me and she was healed.
Well, he knew who it was.
Well, he realized, but he said, who touched me?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that one was planned out necessarily.
Or was it?
Well, I don't think so.
I think he wanted her to realize and to say, it was me, instead of just walking away and not saying anything.
Right. I mean, that's faith when you believe that all I've got to do is touch the hem of his garment and I'll be cleansed, I'll be healed. Okay? Whereas what Glenn was saying, Lazarus' family did not have the faith to believe that Jesus could heal him or bring him back to life. But yet she believed if I just touch that hem, I'll be cleansed, and it did. It happened.
They believed that he could if he'd gotten there before he died.
Right.
But
There was a limit. There was a limit to their faith.
Yeah.
They didn't believe that he could do it once he passed away, especially 4 days. Again, he's proving it by waiting the 4 days that, yes, I can do this.
I wonder if when he came out alive, if he still smelled.
I don't know if you can get rid of the smell of death out of your clothes that easy, but who knows? We don't know. That part was left out. Okay. So what about the rest of the miracles that Jesus performed? Do you think that they were predestined? You don't? Why not? Okay, that was another point.
I didn't
Were all the miracles recorded in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? No. What does John state? That if everything was included in that 2-year time period of everything that Jesus did, everything that he spoke, every miracle he performed, the books, the world could not hold the books of the material that would be written. Okay? So what little bit we do read, and I don't remember exactly how many, I think it was like 37 miracles, and we'll get into that in a minute. But there was a lot more. How many, we don't know. Just that there was a lot. Okay?
There's the fishes too.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of them. We'll go over them in the next few weeks as we look at them. And we're going to go through them from the beginning in a chronological order. Now, does Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John record all of them together? Some of them you can find in Matthew, some Mark, some Luke, some John, and some in all 4. Okay? So we'll look at them in a chronological order of a map I have, that shows them that way. Now, there are events in the New Testament that are not recorded as miracles that some people say are miracles because the mental side of it, that Jesus knew things without being told. The woman at the well, as an example. Okay? He knew her whole life story of her marriages and everything else without her telling him. So some people say, well, that was a miracle because he knew her story without her saying it. Do you consider that a miracle?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think so because he did not physically do something, heal somebody, or whatever. It was strictly he knew what was going, and it was again for a reason. Yes, sir.
You asked us what we believe the miracle was.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to ask you, what do you believe a miracle is?
I think it is again like they said, something outside of the natural realm, the supernatural of Jesus healing, Jesus raising the dead, feeding the 5,000, as she asked, was feeding the 5,000 with just a handful of meat and fish, or fish and bread, but yet takes up 12 baskets afterwards. That's a miracle to feed 5,000 people with, always get it mixed up, 4 loaves and 2 fish, or 2 fish and 4 loaves. But anyway, 2 fish and 4 loaves. I always get confused on what it was. But anyway, that's enough for maybe 2 people, not 5,000. And then to feed 5,000 and take up 12 baskets, that's a miracle. Okay? Raising people from the dead is a miracle. The blind to see. And again, Jesus did those events for a specific reason. There was a lesson usually being taught with each miracle. Whether it was for those people at the time, whether it was because of the Pharisees standing around, questioning what he was doing on the Sabbath, who he was to have the power to do this. They accused him to be what? Satan or devil, or devil's angels or whatever, to be able to do these things. Because they did not want to admit that it was Jesus. But he did them for a specific reason. Some of them might have been at the time, whatever, because, a woman touching his garment. But otherwise, I think they were done for a purpose, for a reason, on that day, on his ministry. It was, like Glenn was saying, building up to the finale. Did I answer your question? Okay. I don't think, again, that they're being performed today. I think it was strictly during that time frame that they're not performed.
You believe what I believe.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm just saying. Again, there's no specific yes or no answer to that. But again, people believe that, surviving an automobile wreck was a miracle. Could be. Yes, ma'am.
And you believe that because of what God said?
Mhm.
Not because that's just what you
Right,
right?
yeah. You shaking your head no?
Me?
No.
Oh,
What do you disagree with? You think the miracles are happening today? Okay, and they could be.
If we didn't have miracles, then we don't know what praying
Thank you, yes.
is. We pray for him to intervene. When he intervenes, that's a miracle.
Absolutely.
Because he changes course. He intervenes.
You had a situation with George Washington. They tell the old story of George Washington being shot by this Indian multiple times. He didn't die. He had bullet holes through the jackets, they say, in his clothing. He didn't die. And he met with that Indian years later goes, you know, basically, you're like an angel or something, because I shot you with point blank. There was no reason you could still be on that horse and go.
Right.
Yeah, that was a miracle.
Is it because we can't explain it that we classify it as a miracle?
Well, like when-
Or is it an actual miracle? I mean, why would God step in and intervene and save George Washington? Of course, you say, oh, because he's George Washington, what he's going to do? He needed to live. You know, or, you know, he could have just moved George Washington or tipped the gun of the Indian so he didn't hit him, you know. And again, I don't know. I have no answer to that. You know, whether it's a miracle or not, I don't know. You know, does God intervene in non-believers with miracles? For a purpose. His purpose. Okay.
It's his purposes.
Interesting point.
This guy had an example, and I can't think of the character in the Old Testament, but he was going to die, and then he extended his life another 15, he extended his life another 15 years for his purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, figure out, yeah.
Well, we see that a lot with the women who are barren, and he opened their wombs up. You know, Samson's mother and others, to where they could have a child. Sarah, Hannah. You know, which is specifically, you know, by God for a reason. You know, for a reason. We studied about Samson. You know, he was born, you know, opened her womb, gave her Samson for a reason, because he was supposed to weaken, you know, the Philistines so that they would eventually, you know, release the children of Israel.
And some people are able to get a doctor. And you look at, I don't know if you look at like, Ben Carson would separate twins that would, join
Conjoined at the
together.
heads.
God worked through his hands, and worked through him, you know, that he intervened, I'm sure, because there's no way Ben Carson could figure that out on his own.
Right,
And he intervenes it. He's very clear.
right.
Modern day miracles.
They don't necessarily come in the same package,
Right,
but they reflect the same God.
right. Yeah, because normally when those things happen and they classify it as a miracle, who, every time that I know of, do they give it to? They give it to God. Well, yeah. Well, most of them, they give it to God. You know, it was because of God that guy survived the accident, or they were able to do the surgery or whatever. You know, and so yes, God is being glorified. I've never ever heard, oh, that was because of the devil. You know, that guy survived because of the devil. No, it's always God is given the glory.
Because a lot of times, I'm a miracle child.
You're right. Yeah, you were saying that.
With the surgery that I had, if it wasn't born, it wouldn't have taken long for me to die.
Yep. And when we're on the receiving end of something like that, it's easy for us to say, yeah, it was a miracle and it was because of God, and, you know, I believe that it is, you know. Or you have a family member involved in an accident or, you know, surgery, you know, whatever, and they come out of it. You know, it's a whole lot easier to say, oh, that was a miracle from God, than for us on the outside to say, yeah, okay, maybe. So yeah, you have a first-hand account. Robert?
I got a 19-year-old boy walking around right now that says miracles are real.
Right.
And I can tell you this firsthand. We were at the doctor. They told Felicia that we're going to have children. I heard the doctor say this. All the tests, everything said no. So we went home, we got down on our hands and knees. We said, Lord, let it be your will and not our own. Father, it is in your hands, not ours.
Mm-hmm.
We cried. I'm telling you, he's working right now in Maverick, if you don't believe me.
I believe I've seen him.
All the medications that they had on, nothing took. All right? It was medically impossible, the doctor said. His words, I was there, I heard it.
Right.
No, I'm just saying. I still can't explain it to this day other than I'm just amazed and proud.
And thankful.
Well, yeah, and I'm humble.
Right.
Why me? Who am I to receive such a beautiful gift? Because I've lost one as well, too. It was time for me to go.
Yeah. Yep, like I said, it really affects us when it's something personal or a family member. Okay. Any other comments on miracles? Like I said, next week I'm going to start up on the miracles, and we're going to do an introduction, kind of covering some of the things that we've talked about today, but in maybe a little bit more detail with scriptures, and talking about what the miracles are and whether or not they were predetermined or predestined. And again, we don't know for sure, but I believe that they were, especially during Jesus' time, that they were done for a purpose. There might have been those that wasn't, but I think they were, especially ones that we know about. Any other comments or questions?
I think so, too, because God's too meticulous to have it any other way.
Right. He had 2 years to get a point. What?
3 years.
3 years. Sorry, 3 years. To get it across. I don't want to keep saying 2, but he had 3 years to get it across. You know, who he was and everything. And so it was, I think, specific as to what was going on. All right, well, thank you for your comments. Thank you for being here this morning. And we'll continue this next week.